Hey there, ever just stop and think about how weird English plurals can be? I mean, one house, two houses. That makes sense. But one mouse, two mice? What is the deal with that? Well, today we're going to crack the code on this little everyday mystery.
All right, let's kick things off with an absolute classic. We all know the plural of goose is geese. So, why isn't the plural of moose meese? It sounds like a joke, right? But the real answer is actually this amazing peek into the history of our language.
So here's our game plan for figuring this all out. We're going to start with the one simple rule we think we all know. Then, we'll become linguistic archaeologists and dig up some echoes from the past. We'll check out the rebel words that don't conform, figure out how to count the uncountable, and then see how the words we choose really matter.
Okay, first stop, the rule everybody learns on day one. Just add an S. This is the standard, right? It's the absolute workhorse of English plurals. But, even this simple rule has a few tricks up its sleeve.
So get this, that S we tack on the end isn't just one sound. It's actually 3 different sounds, and it all depends on what comes right before it. If a word ends with a voiceless sound, like the P in cap, that's just air, it makes a sharp S sound, caps. But if it ends with a voiced sound, where your vocal cords vibrate, like the D in bed, you get a buzzing Z sound, beds. And for those hissy sounds, we add a whole extra syllable, is, like in horses.
And of course, our spelling system has to try and keep up with all this. That's why we add ES to a word like box to make that boxes sound. It's the same reason we have this funky rules for words ending in O or Y. They're not just random annoyances, they're trying to match the sounds we make.
All right, let's get to the really fun part. Those irregular plurals, the ones like mouse and mice, they're not mistakes. Think of them as linguistic fossils. They're echoes from a time long before just add S was the big thing. They're survivors.
So our first type of fossil is called mutation. Basically, way back in Old English, a super common way to make a word plural wasn't to add an ending, but to just change the vowel sound right in the middle of the word.
And boom, here it is. This solves our original mystery. Tooth becomes teeth, man becomes men, louse becomes lice, and mouse becomes mice. You're not adding an S, you're changing the vowel. So mice isn't some weird exception, it's just following a much older rule.
Here's another cool echo from the past for you, voicing. This happens with words that end in a soft, airy sound, like the F in loaf. To make it plural, that sound gets a little buzz. It becomes voiced, right before we add the S.
You can literally feel this one. Try it. Say loaf. Your throat doesn't vibrate on that F. Now say loaves. Feel that buzz on the V sound? That little vibration is voicing, and it's the whole reason the spelling changes from F to VES.
Speaking of old rules, have you ever noticed the N plural? This used to be a really common plural ending in English. Now it's basically an endangered species. It's only hanging on in 3 common words: children, brethren, and oxen.
Now these echoes don't all come from Old English. English has borrowed words from all over the world, and sometimes those words brought their own plural rules with them. You can think of them like immigrant words that kept their original traditions. So from Latin, we get stimulus to stimuli. From Greek, we get phenomenon to phenomena.
Okay, so we've got the standard rule followers and the ancient rule followers. But then there are the total rebels, the words that just don't change at all. They completely refuse to play the singular versus plural game.
And you've got 2 main gangs here. On one side, you have words that are always singular, like news or gold. Even if they end in S, we treat them as a single thing. On the other side are the words that are always plural, like scissors or trousers, usually because they're made of 2 connected parts.
And here's the dead giveaway. You say, here is the news, not here are the news. That tiny verb is tells you everything. It shows that in our minds, news is just one single concept.
Then we have the zero plural club. These are the words where the singular and the plural forms are exactly the same. 1 sheep, 2 sheep. 1 deer, 10 deer. You see this a lot with animals we might see in groups or herds, and with a few other types of words too.
So far, we've been focused on the form of the words themselves. But how we talk about quantity is also about the idea behind the word. And that brings us to a really crucial difference: the stuff we can count versus the stuff we can't.
This makes it super clear. You can count loaves of bread, right? 1 loaf, 2 loaves. But you can't count the substance bread itself.
You wouldn't say, I ate 3 breads. It's the same with a pig versus pork. You count the individual animal, but the meat is just an uncountable mass. It's all about one specific item versus a general substance.
So, what do we do when we need to count something that's technically uncountable? Well, we cheat. We use these nifty little phrases called partitives. We can't have 2 advices, but we can have 2 pieces of advice. We can't count chocolate in general, but we can sure count bars of chocolate. It's a really simple but kind of brilliant workaround.
And this whole idea of countable versus uncountable isn't just some dusty grammar rule. It completely changes the words we use to describe things every single day.
This table is the perfect cheat sheet. For things you can count, you're going to use words like many, few, or several. For the uncountable stuff, you'll use much or little. And thankfully, we have some flexible words like some or a lot of that can work with both.
So, when you put it on together, what's the big takeaway here? It's that English plurals aren't just a chaotic mess of rules designed to confuse you. No, they're more like a living museum. Each rule, whether it's adding an S, changing a vowel, or borrowing from another language, tells a part of the story of English's long and fascinating journey.
So why does any of this actually matter? Well, it's the bedrock of communicating clearly. I mean, think about it. You go to a fantastic party. You wouldn't say there were much people there, right? You'd say many people because people are countable. Understanding these little distinctions is what separates sounding awkward from sounding fluent. It's the hidden architecture that we all use to build our sentences and share our world.